how to deal with lifting alone all the time, how to get over the fear of looking like a beginner, and what is the best 4-day weightlifting split. You guys had questions, so I'm going to answer them. Question number 1, how to deal with lifting alone all the time. So this one has a couple of different things that you can do, but most of them tend to involve getting some training in with training partners. So if you aren't able to get people to come train with you, and you aren't able to regularly train at a weightlifting gym, then I highly recommend doing whatever you can to schedule some somewhat regular visits to gyms around you. Maybe that means visiting your online coach who's like kind of close by once a month, or maybe it means just going and checking out the local weightlifting area and training with them once a week, once a month, every couple of months. Or, that's also kind of the reason why I put together training camps, because if you're a weightlifter, especially if you're following an online program, you're probably training on your own, either in the back of CrossFit gyms, in a Crunch Fitness, or just training in your garage. And it's hard to remember that there are a ton of benefits to training with other weightlifters, especially other weightlifters who are maybe better than you as well. Now, if you don't have people that you can train with in person, then the next thing that I would recommend doing is setting up some sort of online training community, whether that means that you're joining one like the Reddit weightlifting Discord, or you're joining my weightlifting Discord, or you just have a couple people that you frequently comment back and forth with on Instagram. Maybe putting together a group chat with them and posting some regular training updates in there is a good idea. Because if you can't train with somebody else, the next best thing is to try and stay up to date with training with somebody else. And to do this, you are going to have to be proactive in your relationship building here. That means that you're going to have to actively reach out to people, actively put together the group or join a group and be active in it. You can't just hope that you can join a group and then maybe get some of the benefits from it. You have to be a participant too. Now, along with training with people either in person or online, then the next best thing that you can do is try to compete as often as you can. A lot of the time, if you're training alone, you mostly just kind of feel alone in the sport, and it's not a great feeling, but there's also not much that you can do about it really in your training. Then the next best thing is just competing as often as possible, because competitions are one of the only ways that weightlifters ever really kind of meet up besides training camps. Now, that doesn't mean that you need to be competing hard at these competitions. Just treat them as train through meets. Treat them as like, I'm gonna go make some friends at this competition, and you just kind of have to lift some weights as well when you're doing it. And you'll be able to make some connections with people, stay up to date and message back and forth with them, and kind of build your own community through the competitions. And that's another really good way to do it. Now, the other key to this that might help you is training with a slightly different approach to your mood in training. I find that the people who struggle with lifting alone all the time, really what they mean is that they struggle to bring intensity to their training all the time. And oftentimes you try and repair that by being more intense in your training, watching more hype videos and psyching yourself up with motivational videos and stuff like that, and listening to the hardest music possible. But you kind of end up just kind of burning yourself out from the intensity side of things. Where in reality, especially if you're training in a weightlifting gym, there are going to be some sessions that are more chill, more relaxed. The music's not super intense. It's a little bit more just getting through the workout and chatting with people in between sets. You might need to do more of that in your training. Put on some chill music, put on a relaxing, maybe it's a podcast or something like that if you want to listen to something, and just kind of take some pressure down on the intensity of the session that you're training with, and see if that helps kind of make it so that it's not hard to have enough intensity in the key sessions that really make the big difference. That was a great question. Thank you for submitting it. Question number 2, how to get over the fear of looking like a beginner. Specifically, how to get over the fear of looking like you don't know what you're doing just starting out. I've been training like a bodybuilder for 4 years. I'm strong, quite a bit of muscle, and the athlete in me desperately wants to get into the sport of Olympic weightlifting. But I'm so worried about being perceived as weak by others or made fun of for not knowing what I'm doing. Please drop me some advice if you see this. It'd be greatly appreciated. So first of all, this is a great question, because this is something that every beginner is worried about in some way or another. So the first thing that I would recommend doing is finding a USA Weightlifting club near you, which you can do by using the Club Finder tool on USA Weightlifting site. Just Google it and you'll be able to find it. One of the cool things about weightlifting gyms is that just by showing up, people will respect you. The first step into the gym is the hardest step, and nobody really knows this more than weightlifters who all started as a beginner at some point. I want to point out that if you've never trained at a weightlifting gym before and you only have experience in commercial bodybuilding style gyms, it is a completely different energy. Most commercial gyms tend to have an air of elitism or superiority, and everybody kind of posturing with each other a little bit. But weightlifting gyms are just kind of little pockets of friends that you also happen to lift with. Everyone's going to talk to you, everyone's going to be very willing to help out, and as long as you don't go into it with the air of you are going into a commercial gym or a bodybuilding style gym where you kind of put your headphones on, try and ignore everybody, and seem like super tough, that isn't really going to work out very well for you, because the weightlifting gym is just a completely different energy, and as long as you're willing to be a part of the community, people will be willing to accept you into it. Training in a weightlifting gym is a community event. It's not a solo workout, so make sure you treat it that way. Think of it like a party. You wouldn't go to a party and then put your headphones in because you didn't like the music that everybody was playing and then just sit in the corner by yourself. You're not going to make any friends that way. So don't do that when you go to a weightlifting gym. Show up, headphones off, be willing to learn, be willing to have a good time, be willing to look like a beginner, and you'll do just fine. Now, if you don't have a weightlifting gym near you, then the next step is to follow a beginner-focused weightlifting program. In my beginner program, which is a free one, I'll link it in the description below, we start with the simplest possible movements and slowly add a little bit of complexity. So when you're going through it while you are a beginner, you never really feel like you're a beginner because the progressions in technique and in complexity are very logical. We're not going to start by showing you what a snatch looks like and then expecting you to be able to do that from the get-go. Start with the back squat, which if you have a bodybuilding background, you might already do. Then we move into the overhead squat, and that'll be a little bit newer, but it's not that much more challenging than the back squat was, especially if you have good back squat technique. And then from there, we'll make the biggest jump, which is the hip snatch, but it is still a fairly simple movement, and it's not going to be all that complex, especially compared to if you just tried to figure out how to snatch from the hip without ever having back squatted. So if you pick a training program that has a progression that doesn't necessarily make you feel like a beginner, even though you will be learning all of the things that a beginner would need to know, then you can make a lot of progress without feeling insecure while you're in the gym. Okay, now that we've got the surface level stuff out of the way, why does it matter if you look like a beginner? You are one. Life gets a lot harder when you're pretending to be something that you're not, so pull your walls down and just be a beginner. And when you push yourself to do this, take that first step and think of yourself as I am a beginner, then everything actually becomes a lot easier, because when you inevitably struggle with a lift, struggle with learning a new technique, fail a lift in a weird way like every single person does, you have the easiest excuse in the world. I'm a beginner. I'm supposed to be bad at this. And when you're worried about what other people are thinking, oh, she's a beginner, oh, she has no idea what she's doing, just remember it's all in your head. You don't actually know that that's what anybody else is thinking. More than likely, they're also thinking, oh God, I hope nobody's looking at me. I hope nobody's judging me. They're experiencing the same stuff. And finally, in the unlikely circumstance that somebody is judging you or giving you shit for trying something new, they're either insecure so much so that they're kind of projecting that onto you because they know that they would never be brave enough to get outside of their comfort zone and try something new like this. And also, fuck them. It doesn't really matter. It's okay for people to not like you. Life moves on either way, and you're either going to be somebody who did something that they're proud of, or you're going to be somebody who never did. But either way, people still won't like you. Somebody out there won't. So I just hope that you are going to do the thing that will make you in the future most proud. So thank you for asking that question. Hopefully that helped. Question number 3, what's a good training split for 4 days a week? 3 days is usually too long to complete, but 5 days is too much. What do I do? So this is actually something I've been answering a lot lately, because a lot of the 3-day lifters on our team have moved up to the 5-day, but they're actually doing a modified version of it with 4 days a week. So here's how we've been doing that with our training program. So our 5-day program follows this structure. Monday is our highest volume Olympic lifting day. This is where we're going to do usually one of the 3 on-the-minute progressions from my on-the-minute secrets guide, anywhere from 5 to 20 reps between 70 to 85% of your max for both the snatch and clean and jerk. Then Tuesdays is a skills and strength focus day. So the main focus is going to be strength work, the push, press, and back squat. And we're following usually a 12-week or 8-week progression on that. But before our strength work, we're going to do some lighter technique work for the Olympic lifts using a drill that is kind of inherently lighter. So think something like 3 to 5 sets of a tall snatch or a tempo clean or a jerk from the split. So this is just a great way to get some higher frequency of the Olympic lifts without also having to deal with a ton of extra fatigue from the Olympic lifts. Wednesday or day 3 is where we're going to do a more moderate workout. This is powers focus with moderate weight and moderate intensity. Now we can do power snatch and power clean here. I try not to do the jerk on this day. I just find that it helps to have one day where we don't go overhead with every lift that we do. But you can also do different types of complexes. I also just would recommend doing more power complexes. So maybe power snatch plus hang power snatch or something like that. Could be an effective tool for this, just to give the legs a little bit of the break after the squats from the previous day. Now, the next day, Thursday, is a rest day, and then we've got our traditional big Friday, max out Friday. Usually we're working up to a heavy single, double, or triple the snatch and the clean and jerk, or some variation of those that would be considered an anchor lift, like a pause snatch possibly, or a block snatch, or maybe some sort of quality complex like I've talked about in some of my articles, like 2 cleans plus 1 jerk, or 1 clean plus 2 jerks. And then we'll finish the session out with clean pulls. Now, on Saturday, we're going to have our second day of skills and strength, this time focused on the front squat and strict press with a lighter drill before it, usually focused on either the clean or the jerk. Just kind of lines up better with the focus for that day. And Sunday, we will rest. But if we're going to modify that, here's how I would do it. We keep day 1 and keep day 2. We're going to completely scrap day 3, the powers and or complexes. This is a little bit less necessary of a day, but we had snatch pulls on that program, so we're actually going to take those snatch pulls and move them to Monday. And that is the only change that we're going to make. We're going to keep our Friday heavy day. We're going to keep our Saturday skills and strength. So it works out pretty well. We've got 2 days of hard weightlifting focus with some minimal strength work with pulls afterwards. And then we've got 2 days of strength focus with some minimal work on the Olympic lifts beforehand. So if that sounds good to you, then you can check out a free week trial of either my OlyStrong 3-day or 5-day program, or you can modify it to a 4-day like you now know how to do. And you can find all of that linked in the description below. We'll catch you guys in the next one. Bye.